This channel won't survive without your subscription and likes. Help me. Todd, drunk and overconfident, stretched out his arms to hug the guardsman. But in the next instant, a dull thud rang out and his body was sent flying backward, spilling beer across the pavement. The crowd gasped, cameras clicked, someone let out a shriek. And then the police officer appeared. What happened next was completely unexpected. But let's start from the very beginning. London's weather didn't disappoint. Gray skies loomed over Buckingham Palace, and the damp air gave the majestic walls a slightly somber hue. Tourists crowded the square in front of the palace, snapping pictures of the motionless guards in their red uniforms and tall bearskin hats. Cameras clicked, children squealed, and tour guides rattled off their standard speeches. Everything was business as usual. And then he appeared. Todd, a textbook American tourist, dressed as if he wanted to become a local attraction himself. A bright red t-shirt with massive I Love UK letters, worn-out jeans, and, of course, a baseball cap adorned with the American flag. From the first glance, it was obvious. This man had no concept of blending in. Todd staggered, as if searching for balance, but every step betrayed a different problem. He was drunk, very drunk. So much so that even a random passerby could tell this guy had gone way overboard. His face was flushed, his eyes darted wildly, and his lips stretched into a self-satisfied grin, the kind of smile worn by someone convinced the world revolved around them. He walked with his arms outstretched, swaying like a ship in a storm. Occasionally he stopped to yell something, laughed at his own jokes, and then resumed his triumphant march through the crowd. People noticed him, of course, but kept their distance. Some averted their eyes, some quickened their pace, while others reached for their phones, sensing a spectacle in the making. And the spectacle did not disappoint. "Hey!" Todd suddenly bellowed, nearly losing his balance. "That's my old friend!" He jabbed a finger at one of the guards standing motionless by the palace. "Billy! Is that you?" A few people in the crowd stopped taking pictures and turned to watch. The guard, tall, disciplined, and completely unbothered, didn't even flinch. He stood as still as ever, trained by British discipline to ignore the world around him, but Todd was just getting started. "I know you, man," he yelled, still pointing. "We went to college together." The crowd held its breath. Someone giggled. Someone hit record on their phone. Someone exchanged looks with a friend as if to say, "Did you hear that?" A middle-aged woman, clutching her young son's hand, quickly pulled him away, murmuring, "Let's go, sweetheart. You don't need to see this." But Todd paid no attention. This, he had decided, was his moment of glory. He pushed through the crowd and stepped right up to the guard. The audience's eyes lit up with anticipation. Someone was already frantically typing in a live stream comment section. "Oh man, this guy is done." The crowd at Buckingham Palace stood frozen, transformed into a living wall of onlookers. Every pair of eyes was locked onto one man, a drunk American in a red I Love UK t-shirt, stumbling his way toward a palace guard with the giddy expression of someone who had just found a long-lost brother. "Bro!" Todd drawled, throwing his arms wide open. "I missed you. Let's hug it out." His voice echoed through the square, shattering the stiff, reserved British atmosphere. That shout carried everything. His boundless confidence, his alcohol-fueled looseness, and his complete obliviousness to the fact that he had just crossed an invisible line. The crowd gasped. Everyone knew the golden rule. You don't touch the guards. They're not actors, not street performers, and definitely not photo props. They're soldiers, and their patience has limits. But Todd didn't care. He stepped forward, swaying, and reached out for a hug. "Come on, dude. It's me, Todd." His body lurched clumsily, arms outstretched, ready to close around the soldier's rigid frame, and in that instant, the guard's right arm shot out in a sharp warning motion. It wasn't just a gesture. It was an official sign. Back. Off. If Todd noticed, he definitely didn't take it seriously. "Oh, come on!" he laughed, as if it were all a joke. "I know you missed me," and before anyone could stop him, Todd clapped the guard on the shoulder, right on the crisp red uniform. The surrounding tourists recoiled. A few gasped in shock. A woman with a camera clapped a hand over her mouth. Somewhere in the crowd, someone muttered under their breath, "Oh shit." Multiple people hit record at the same time, knowing they were about to witness something legendary. The air grew thick with tension. The guard still didn't move. But this was the calm before the storm. And then it happened. A dull thud. Todd didn't even have time to process what had just occurred. He felt his chest slam into what seemed like a concrete wall, but it was the stock of the guard's rifle, sending him flying instantly. "Ah!" came the muffled cry. His body lifted off the ground, his legs gave out, and in a split second, he crashed onto the stone pavement. Thud. For a moment there was dead silence, and then 2 sounds erupted at the same time. Plop! A plastic cup slipped from his grip, spilling golden liquid all over the gray stones. "Oh!" The crowd exhaled in unison. It was a spectacle. Todd coughed, gasping for air, his hands clutching his chest where the rifle stock had just been. He looked like he had been hit by a train, rather than by a stone-faced British soldier. But if anyone thought this was the moment he would realize his mistake, they were wrong. "Are you crazy?" Todd roared, his face twisting in pain and fury. "I was just trying to hug you!" Somewhere in the crowd, someone chuckled. Someone shook their head. "Serves you right, dumbass," a loud voice called out. Tourists exchanged glances, whispered among themselves. Some laughed, some frowned in disapproval. "That's the Royal Guard, you idiot," a middle-aged British man shouted, his voice carrying not an ounce of sympathy. But Todd wasn't done. Still gasping, his face contorted with anger, he tried to stand up, but splat! He slipped on his own spilled beer and crashed back down, this time face first into the sticky puddle. The crowd burst into laughter. One of the tourists even whistled, as if watching a slapstick comedian nail a perfect fall. "What a disgrace, dude," someone muttered. And in that moment it became painfully clear. Nobody was on his side. Todd hadn't just embarrassed himself. He had become a joke. The crowd had barely processed what they had just witnessed when a police officer marched toward the scene. Tall, fit, with a square jaw and an absolutely glacial stare, he walked directly toward Todd, still sprawled in a puddle of beer. The crowd held its breath. Some had their phones out, anticipating the grand finale of this disaster. The guardsman, as expected, remained completely still, as if nothing had happened. But the officer, he was here to put an end to this. "Get up, sir." His voice was flat, dry, devoid of even the slightest trace of sympathy. Todd froze, as if finally realizing how much worse things had just gotten. Groaning, wincing, he struggled to his feet. His face was grimy, sticky with spilled beer. His red t-shirt now looked like he had been dragged out of a bar fight. His jeans were soaked. He tried to look confident, but he was swaying. "It was just a joke, man," he muttered, forcing an awkward smile, as if hoping to play it cool. The officer didn't blink. "You are prohibited from approaching the guards," he stated, his tone flat, final. "You are under arrest for disorderly conduct." The crowd gasped, and then applause. Someone clapped. Someone burst out laughing. Someone whistled, nodding approvingly. "Oh, bro, you're done!" A voice cheered from the audience. 2 officers grabbed Todd by the arms and dragged him away like a sack of potatoes. He screamed, This is insane! I'm an American! Todd thrashed, wriggling, but it was useless. I have rights! His face was burning. Whether from rage or the soul-crushing humiliation of the moment, no one cared. The crowd slowly dispersed. Buckingham Palace returned to its usual, orderly routine. The guardsmen remained still, as if none of it had ever happened. And the next day, a video titled "American Tourist Tries to Hug a Royal Guard, Instantly Regrets It," exploded on YouTube. Millions of views, thousands of comments, and one simple truth: never, ever try to hug a royal guard.